Yeah, hi everyone. I'm really glad to be here. Thanks everyone, all the sponsors. I'm Julia Enthoven. I'm the founder and CEO of Kapwing. Everyone can say it, it's Kapwing, like something ricocheting off something else. Kapwing is a fully online video creation platform that helps marketing and media teams to make video content together. It's kind of like, Figma, but for video creation.
Awesome, thanks Julia. My name is Jon Noronha. I'm one of the founders of Gamma. We are a startup that basically lets you use AI to make a presentation or a website. Our goal is to actually create a new format that is somewhere in between those two things. My background before that was I worked at Optimizely as the head of product, and before that I was at Microsoft. So I think I've also seen the whole spectrum of big tech to small tech, and happy to share thoughts on the journey between those as well.
Cool. So why don't we kick things off? So, there's a lot of hype and excitement in the space right now. Everyone's grandparents are asking about ChatGPT, and as founders, our job is to really take all of that excitement and vision and turn it into reality. And so I'd love to hear from your perspectives, like where you're seeing the rubber hit the road here. And Jon, we were talking a little bit before this about the journey from, sort of the pre-generative AI days to Stable Diffusion and all these really powerful foundational models coming online. How did that process kick off, and what was your navigation during all of that excitement?
Yeah, so we started the company back in 2020 when I think AI was still a glimmer in most people's eyes. And our goal at the time was just to reinvent the way people communicate at work. So it was much more about productivity and communication and the actual format and media people use to do that. It wasn't so much about creating content for people. That wasn't even something we thought of as really possible. But even from the start, we had our eye on these large language models. I think the first version of GPT-3 came out, if I'm not mistaken, in 2021, but it wasn't that good yet when it first came out. And so we poked around, we tried it here and there, and just kind of kept on going. And I think for us, there was really a sea change last fall that came with both GPT-3 getting a lot better and also Stable Diffusion coming out. And suddenly just seeing what was possible in the world of generation made us really step back and rethink our whole product. For us, trying to reinvent the slide deck, which is this sort of everyday medium we all use all the time, we had spent all these years building up something new that our kind of fans really were excited about and thought was cool, but most new people struggled to understand and get their head around. And we realized that generative AI stood the chance of bridging a gap of sort of that blank slate problem. How do I log into a product and in the first 1 or 2 minutes of using it, see the value and the aha that gets me to actually invest and try something new? And so that became kind of the organizing principle for us of solving that blank slate problem for a new user as quickly as possible. And we kind of aligned our whole company around that goal and tried to build an AI-centric onboarding. And the further we pulled on that thread, we realized it wasn't just an AI-centric onboarding. We really should have an AI-centric product because the potential is so transformative that just tacking it on is not going to cut it. You have to sort of rethink all of the building blocks of what you're doing with AI at the center. I think there's a massive opportunity for everyone to do that because bigger incumbents are just not in the position to move as fast doing that. And so for any kind of aspiring founders out there, I think there's this incredible pocket where we can all go in and create very new things that build on the potential of this technology.
Yeah, I guess we started in 2018, and I would say most aspects of our business and our technology have not changed over the course of the last year. We always planned to build in sort of smart technologies that automate certain workflows and make the experience feel personalized in an AI-powered way. And that's been true over the course of the last couple of years for us. For example, video transcription has really changed the way that people think about searching through videos, storing videos. I was just talking to several founders in the group who are using similar technology to power productivity workflows. That said, I agree that LLMs and generative AI have unlocked some really new and exciting capabilities, especially when it comes to the blank slate problem, or sort of how do you go from 0 to 1. And I think, both of us are founders of creative companies where someone is expressing a story or some kind of mission or message. And we also have incorporated these technologies to help users get from 0 to 1, nothing to having a video. And that is really powerful because a lot of times it's really hard to know where to start when it comes to video creation. And we just launched our AI video maker about a month and a half ago, and it's seeing a huge amount of just organic traction because there's so much, because everyone's grandma is interested in this space. So, people search for AI video maker on search and they look at, every single result on the first page. And that is pretty crazy. That hasn't happened in a while. So yeah, that's, I think, for us, we think about LLMs also in similar ways. How can we build smart assistants that use text prompts to help people get stuff done? That's why I think ChatGPT has been so, empowering, because you can give it a text prompt, get stuff done. And we think the same thing will come to most productivity software, including Kapwing. So we're working on that too.
Cool. And both of you guys being in the creative space, also kind of empowering workflows is really creates some interesting synergy here. So I want to dive into that. I think for me, when you're getting past hype, it's really about not building technology for the sake of technology and actually creating some sort of value that you can measure, right, at the end of the day. And for folks who are thinking about early stage products, when you were first making that transition and adding AI to your workflows and adding AI to your software, or even just swapping in and out a system or a model, were there specific metrics in there that helped you, guiding principle, North Star, this is what we should be optimizing for, as opposed to just hey, this is cool, this is fun, we're doing it because the VCs are asking us to do it?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. So for us, we think about how do we make video editing and storytelling faster. So it's really attractive when we can basically cut down a workflow by 10x, which we experience ourselves because we use our own product to make YouTube videos and TikToks and stuff internally. And we also experience with our customers when we beta test the product. That said, there is definitely also sometimes you kind of think of a wacky, weird idea and it's just kind of cool and you build it because you think it's kind of cool. And sometimes that actually has worked for us. And most of the time it doesn't work. So yeah, I would say that the way we avoid hype is by really having a very close connection to and ear for with our customers. We're constantly listening to customers in hundreds of different ways through customer support tickets, through all of our organic social media, by reaching out to friends in my community, talking to marketers, having a certain number of interviews we try to do every single month, and also being creators ourselves and dogfooding our own products. So I feel like keeping your customer at the center of everything you do is essential to avoiding the hype train and really focusing on user value.
It's actually really cool to hear your answer, Julia, because I think our products are so similar that they're in this kind of creative productivity space. And I think they share two things, which is, on the one hand, we're trying to optimize for just speed. Both these areas, presentations and video editing, have a huge amount of just painful, redundant stuff you have to do over and over and over again. I mean, just the idea of having to edit a video makes me cringe. The times I've done it before, I haven't used Kapwing, so I think I'd feel better. And same with the idea of making a presentation. It's just the feeling I have is ick. And so often for us, our North Star has been how do we relieve some of the ick that you think of in doing these everyday tasks? And the other that's more creative is how do you also help someone make something that they couldn't have made on their own? And that's a pretty magical aha feeling. And I think both are really well drawn out by the practice of dogfooding. So the practice of using your own product to do whatever it does every single day. We've made a real emphasis of that at Gamma. So the way we started early on was a thing we call Gammarama, which is basically a weekly lightning talk that someone on our team will give every Friday about a topic of their choice. So it'll be introduction to woodworking or the latest Adam Levine gossip or whatever it is somebody has. We would challenge ourselves to have someone on the team make a presentation every single week and report all the things that went terribly wrong along the way using our product. And that kind of felt experience of actually doing these things makes you really realize where those painful gaps are. And I think those are the moments that give you the insight of where something like AI can come in. I can say certainly for me when I use a tool like ChatGPT, I have these moments where I'm stunned by the amount of time that it saved me on something. Same with GitHub Copilot. It's just remarkable the degree to which it can save me in an instant half an hour of work that I had to do. And so we tried really early on to seek out those moments and really, really create those as much as possible, first for ourselves and then later for new users of our products. But I think also on the creative note, there's a different piece, which is just that moment of fun, of doing something totally unexpected that you didn't think was possible. And so the other thing we realized was that these Gammaramas we used to spend the whole week preparing for Friday, we could do with AI in a matter of minutes. And so we started making them on our phones. Our product didn't even have mobile support at the time, but we just made a little mobile version of it and plugged it in. And all of a sudden we'd be at lunch and someone would say, like, how does Subway make their bread taste so good? And we would just type it in as a presentation topic and say, give me one of those. And a minute later we'd have a presentation about how Subway makes their bread. And I think the first time we did that at lunch, there was like this aha of like, oh, there's really something different here that wasn't possible before.
And as you're building these out, and you talk about GitHub Copilot, et cetera, these systems present, in some ways, brand new challenges, and in other ways, they're the same challenges as any other tech product that you're building, right? Can you elaborate a little bit on how you approach that and what's been working for you and what hasn't as you're building these out?
Yeah, I think you said it right, which is even though AI has all this kind of magic razzle-dazzle, a lot of the basic problems are exactly the same. One of the things we did early on in launching our AI was we made really, really heavy use of user testing. We use usertesting.com, but there are other ways you can do it. But we basically every day tried to run 10 new people through our onboarding flow and have them do it. And we thought all this crazy AI stuff is what would throw them off or get them excited. But no, the AI, they're like, yeah, I get that part. But like, I couldn't find the button to do this. And it didn't work on this browser. And it's also really slow. And all the usual things that come from making a product, like gravity still applies, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's been core to Kapwing too. I mean, even back in 2018 when we started, there were a bunch of like AI video tools. It's like, oh, now you can like track this one object in a video and change the colors of it or whatever, or like you can magic erase it, or you can cut out the whatever. And I was like, yeah, but you still can't literally trim your video online. Like you can search for like trim your video and you'll find these super spammy sites that like do not what you want to do. Like all you want to do is like add text in the corner and like you can't do that. And so we started actually, we were bootstrapping. I'm like, my background is in software engineering. My co-founder and I built the first versions ourselves. We built these like 12 websites that were just like one-off tools that just did those super basic functional video editing tasks like crop, trim, add text, add music. And how we got to Kapwing was realizing that there was like this common thread among all of those, which is that video editing really sucks and it's really hard to do and hard to learn especially. And so that was kind of how we got started with Kapwing before we raised money. Anyways, the reason I bring that up is because I think that that is exactly right. Like one of my major learnings from building AI products is that if AI is AI is just about never gonna be 100% correct. It's always going to be like somewhere between, like 20% and like 80% correct. And I shouldn't say always. It's mostly that is the case. And getting it to be 100% correct is really important for getting your user over the finish line. Because if they can, if it's only 80% correct, like there's a lot of things that like 80% correct won't do. Like the email you sent to your sales prospect, like having it be 20% off is just like not really going to close a deal. So that applies for many different fields of AI productivity. I think like getting your user from that whatever AI suggests to 100% correct is really the crucial part for people building AI applications. So for Kapwing, what that means is like we have AI, generative AI, but like we also let you do everything you want to do with regards to video editing. Like you can add scenes, change stuff around, add in your logo and your branding, take stuff out, replace it. And because of that, in our case, the AI is really suggestive. It's not prescriptive. It doesn't say, this is the way you must do it. It says, like, here's a suggestion of what you can do. And we've made mistakes with that in the past, too. We've built AI features that are too prescriptive. Like, they just don't let you have any customization. One example of this for us was, like, we launched, like, a automatic remove background tool. So you could remove the background of your video, just like Zoom or something like that. And it wasn't really successful until we launched a chroma key tool similar to it that let you like manually adjust what the background was that you want to remove so that it's not just automatically removing the video, but you actually have some control over what parts of the video are in it and which ones aren't. And after we launched that, like restore flow, kind of like letting you put certain pixels back in and things like that, the feature was all of a sudden much more successful. So basically allowing your users to refine and change the AI suggestion, I think is crucial for building great products in this space.
That's a really good segue into this sort of notion of responsible AI, right? And there's different ways that manifests itself. And in my mind, responsible AI is really about the people and the process behind the product development or product utilization, right? The technology, at the end of the day, will do what people ask it to. And thinking critically about its implications and the source of all of this data and all of these types of like end implications for the end user are really important. So I'd love to hear how you've interweaved this into your product. And Jon, we were talking about this just beforehand, like there's definitely an educational component to creating PowerPoints and slides and using this in school or even suggesting images, how they were trained. Have you started to think through some of these like frameworks for responsibility? And yeah.
It's definitely one of the biggest challenges for us, particularly because, as you said, like tools like PowerPoint are used so heavily in school. And I think this also maybe changed since I was a kid, but it seems like a lot of kids now, their homework is to make a presentation about something. And so they love our product. The idea that they can just type in, Abraham Lincoln, what was his deal, and get something out of it is like a huge help to them. And I have mixed feelings about that because I'm excited to save them the drudgery of having to do that, but I don't necessarily love the idea of doing someone's homework for them. And I think associated with that, there are a lot of questions people have, like, can I just turn this in? Like, is it plagiarism if I just like turn this in for my class? And so we're realizing that we need to actually go back and explain what this tool is even for. And part of that's being opinionated about, like, why did you build this thing in the first place? Our whole vision was not to be your final homework by any means. We wanted to build a first draft template that shows you what you can do so that you can go in and fill it in from there. What we're realizing, though, is that AI knowledge varies so much among different people. And so some people are like, yeah, I get it. ChatGPT hallucinates. Just give me a starting point and I'm going to mess with it. Other people are like, what is this thing? How did it answer my question? Like, where did I even start? And so we're realizing we have to get back to basics on a lot of the simple kind of communication of like, what even is this system? How does it work?
Yeah, again, just plus one. But I kind of want to elaborate on our experience with this term hallucinations, or sort of LLMs saying things that actually plausibly could be true but are not true. So like one example of this is if you go to Kapwing and you go to our AI video maker, which you should all do, and you type in your own name, Kapwing will generate using OpenAI's GPT a video about you. And there are definitely going to be hallucinations in there. So, for me, it's like, Julia Enthoven once interned for the Climate Corporation in New York City, which I have absolutely never done, but it's plausible. Given my background, it's plausible. And so I think that there is definitely this, one of the things that scares me about GPT in comparison to Google, I used to work on search as a product manager, is that, you just really don't have the source of the knowledge. It's making something that plausibly could be true, but it's not actually true for sure. So I think that like even in the case of like, kids making a presentation or a video using AI, there's still these like fundamental journalism skills that we all learned in school in a different format, which is like, oh, can you use Wikipedia? Like probably not. You need to like go understand what the source of the facts are and go read them for yourself and evaluate them. That I hope becomes, a bigger part of our education system. Of course, there's so many other aspects of AI that I think founders should have a perspective on with regards to, marketing your product as replacing human talent. I think creates a lot of fear in the world. I was explaining to someone, I went to a generative AI conference in Hollywood, and there were a lot of industry professionals there that were really afraid, and there was a lot of tension because the writer's strike was going on at the same time. And there really is fear in the world about people losing their jobs. And regardless of whether or not you agree with that, I certainly don't agree that AI will replace people's jobs. I think it makes people much more creative, not less. But regardless of whether you agree, it's an important thing to be aware of so that you're not feeding into that fear in your marketing. Because I think if you feed into that fear, like if all of us do as an industry, then we risk bigger industry repercussions that slow down progress. I also think about responsible AI. Yeah, certainly like copyright is TBD in a lot of these ways. I think OpenAI, Sam Altman was basically begging Congress for like regulations in this space because he's not sure either. And, I think we're all learning about what the right way is to approach thinking about large-scale copyright issues. So that's my take on 3 categories in responsible AI, and there's many more that I didn't speak to there also.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for that. And there's a lot of depth there we could continue to unpack, but I wanted to kind of sort of wrap this by asking, like, as you're presenting this tool as a productivity enabler for these creatives, like, is there anything that's working for you and positioning it in the right way so they feel more excited about it than maybe more fearful, and like kind of shedding light to your point about how it makes people more creative and shows more possible outcomes than what they could have imagined?
Sure, I can start off on this one. I think that what's so magical about generative AI is that the creative process, which before was like quite siloed just on your machine, just you in Photoshop, just you in Premiere or whatnot, PowerPoint. All of a sudden it becomes, you become able to collaborate and get really quick feedback from other people and from AI itself. Like being able to be like, oh, let's try something different for this, try something different, try it 100 different ways. And I think that is, like that idea of just like you're collaborating with another person, in Kapwing's case, you can collaborate directly with your teammate, and also you can collaborate with like the global creative community. That is, I think, an important, it doesn't mean that you're still gonna have to have your own judgment, and you're still gonna have to have an artistic sense in terms of deciding what is actually good and what's trash. But you are gonna have a lot of ideas to pick from as you are forming that judgment. So collaboration is like our bottom line, and that helps us in terms of positioning.
We have a very similar take. We often talk about how our goal is to provide an AI design partner. And I think that idea of partnership has a lot of pieces you can sort of unpack and think about. One of the ideas of partnerships is like the partner listens to you, obviously. The partner suggests things that you may not have thought of. The partner actually still gives you ultimate control to undo things, but the partner also maybe pushes you to think about things in a different way than you otherwise would have. For us, what that's looked like is really trying to build AI for iteration rather than just creation. And this is where I think generative AI is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, it really captures a lot of the magic of what's cool about this space, but I think it also probably misses more than it gains, because it implies this sort of pure 0 to 1 thing where it generates everything and you sit back and watch. I think, though, what kind of ChatGPT showed was that there was real power in back and forth iteration and turn taking when it comes to working with an AI. For us, what this meant was we didn't just build an AI that generates a presentation for you. We built AI that you could talk to about your presentation. So you could say, hey, could you try formatting this a different way? And it would give you 2 suggestions. And you could say, oh, yeah, I like the second one. Or you could say, like, no, I don't like either of these. We have a visual designer on our team named Melissa, and often we just talk about as Melissa in a box that you can just give to the customer to design your slides. I think this also ties to this question of like, are you replacing a professional? And I think where the sweet spot's been for AI and for us is when there's this job that technically existed but almost nobody had. So for us, that's presentation designer. I think there are a small number of presentation designers out there. Like I'm sure Tim Cook had one for the Apple keynote. A very, very talented, probably many people. But most of us making presentations don't have anybody. We just have ourselves. And so that's where there's an opportunity to do something we weren't that excited about doing in the first place, and where we didn't necessarily have very strong skills we built up either. And so I think there's room to look for these pockets where you unlock some new behavior. The other kind of observation that we're seeing is when you do have this, it actually unlocks this new way of using the tools. So a simple example of this is we've talked to people who run sales teams who used to just use the same presentation for every client, who now say, actually, I can completely tailor this to everybody. And that always kind of made sense in theory, but it was just so much work. And so what are those kind of hidden use cases that were just not economical in terms of time before that you can actually unlock? And those are the ones where you're not putting anybody out of a job. If anything, you're probably creating more business and more jobs by doing it.
Love it. Thank you so much.